Good morning, traders. It's 8:05 a.m. Chicago time on Wednesday, the 5th of April, 2023. Thanks for joining me here on episode 2443. Yesterday, there was no trader bite. I had some issues with historical data, and so I had no charts before the open. Really appreciate you coming in today. I want to remind you that derivatives trading is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Thank you for the mic check. I always appreciate that. One never knows about the mic in this thing. Okay, so the convergent trading pre-market summary sheet. Again, you can get this by pointing your browser to twitter.com/conv trading. You see that in the bottom right corner of the red box. And you can grab this whenever it's published. You're seeing it here live, updating live. The overall market sentiment is mixed to slightly down, slightly risk off. The Russell again a drag versus the other indices. Not much to report here other than the ADP number, which for front runs the Friday non-farm payroll unemployment numbers out of the U.S. came in lower than expected. The ADP came in at, where am I here? The ADP came in at 145,000 versus 200,000 expected. Again, some people use this as a forecaster for what the Friday's number is going to look like. It's not been accurate in my opinion, but there you have it. RBNZ surprises the Royal Bank of New Zealand surprises with a 50 basis point hike. Fed's Mester says the Fed needs to raise rates above 5% and keep them there for a while. Mester had a few more comments that I'll highlight here. Says it is too soon to say whether the Fed will raise rates in May. He also says that the rates are expected to go a little bit higher than hold. And so that's important. The market kind of responded to that. RBA Governor Lowe, decision to hold rates steady does not imply interest rate rises are over. J&J, this was, I saw this in the Wall Street Journal yesterday. J&J agrees to pay $8.9 billion in talc settlement, the largest such settlement in history. FedEx plans to combine divisions to cut costs. Exxon signals 25% drop in Q1 profits. And then for today, we saw what happened with the JOLTS number yesterday. It's being attributed for that big sell-off across the board. And for today, the key figure is the ISM services, ISM non-manufacturing PMI actually, and non-manufacturing employment. That's at 10 o'clock. We do get the S&P Global PMI numbers. These are the final at 9:45, and then we have crude oil inventories at 10:30. At 10:30, and then we wrap up the day with the Chinese Caixin Services PMI for March at 9:45 p.m. Eastern U.S. time, in case you're trading in the evening. Something to note here is the crypto market. Cryptos have really pushed up and have been holding these prices. Cryptos is establishing value for Bitcoin in this 28,000 area, and for Ether in the 1850 to 1900 area. Something to pay attention to. And then as far as today's auction, the ES is in a multi-distribution profile. The ES has been butting its head against the VWAP the entire session. I will go over that here in a minute. The range is relatively poor, but pretty much in line with the last few sessions. 18.5 points. Things have definitely quieted down in terms of range. And then the point of control shifted to 4120 41.20. We're still remaining above the 4100. We retested 41.17 in the overnight session. We did that about a few minutes ago, I guess. So that's where we stand. The volume's in line, light-ish to in line, and the inventory 63% short. So let's dive into the technicals so we can get you out of here. Whoa. Take it easy, Crude. Here's the overall picture for the S&P minis in a TPO chart. You could see that we started above yesterday's high, and the prior day's high, Monday's high, and then we finished at and settled at pretty much the low of Monday. And what we had is a sort of a bearish engulfing day if you're a candlestick aficionado. But overall, we had some really important tests yesterday. We went back and tested the point of control of last Friday on that strong run up. And we are holding these prices. The overnight session, having tested 41.3550, failed to push through those singles up there, basically the thin part of the profile. The singles start at 41.36 half, maybe. Actually, no, there are no singles. The singles are well above that. No, let me see. My eyes are failing me. All right. So yes, the singles started. I was right. The singles started at 41.36 and a quarter. The high is 41.35. So we failed to kind of push into the thin part of yesterday's profile, the weak structure up there, and then we pushed to 41.17, which was a little bit higher than the low yesterday. The low yesterday was around 41.15 quarter, 41.15 even, something like that. So the overnight session is not doing a good job. You know, it tested up here, but it didn't do a good job leaning on yesterday's point of control to hold these prices to resume the move up. So today, we're likely to resolve one way or another. Let's look at this in a market profile mode. There it is. Let me undo that and bring this down so you can see it a little bit better. There we go. So you can see the profile behind there. The over-under from yesterday on the volume is right where that single print is, right where we left our VWAP yesterday at 36 and a quarter, right in here. And then this morning we tested 35.50 right below, all the way down to the 17. So we basically in the overnight session did nothing but check and confirm the value that was established yesterday. So very important today. Very important today to see if value is held from yesterday on this B-shaped profile. Remember, B-shape, it's not exactly a perfect B-shape because it has a distribution up top. It's almost a double distribution. But if you look at this, this is long liquidation. Long liquidation. Okay, this is longs being squeezed out. Yesterday ended the one-time framing up that we've had for a couple days, several days, and is overall the market's in a neutral stance coming into today. Remember, the market generally will put in higher lows. We don't care about the highs as much. It's how does it auction the low, puts in higher lows, and generally does one of these numbers, okay, and then the next day either engulfs the prior day like we did, or it simply makes a lower high inside bar, or lower high, lower low. So the market generally has some curvature to the way it kind of rolls over. It's rare that a market would do a tweezer top at the high on a daily basis. And so what we see here is a bit of a rounding, and and we are not moving off of the lows. That's the key clue here. So we did close this naked point of control at 41.17 yesterday. It's about 41.15 or so for the market profile. In fact, the low print yesterday was the market profile low print from last Friday, market profile point of control from last Friday, and we bounced right off of it to hold up here. And again, we want to see, so what you have, who does not know what an initial balance is here? Does everybody know what an initial balance is? I could tell you that, let me see, where is it? I can tell you that if you look at this red box down here, you'll see a link on Convergence sheet, and it has a glossary there. I would suggest you go there. Just point your browser to go to ct.pro/glossary-terms, all lowercase. Go to ct.pro/glossary-terms, and that will give you a lot of these terms. So the initial balance is the first hour's high or low of the RTH session, of the main session. Yes, it's the A and B profile print, and it's the first hour, not 30 minutes. It's the first 60 minutes, and the initial balance is generally the initial balance simply tells us what the higher time frame, what we call the other time frame, not the time frame that we're in, is what we call the higher time frame's most active period. A lot of programs come in based on daily information, putting on their trades on a market on open basis or execute in the first hour until more information comes in the form of news or economic events or whatever. So that's the initial balance, and how that initial balance is treated for the rest of the session. There are some really solid stats on how the initial balance is treated. You know, something like I don't know what it is. If somebody has the Convergent Market Stats reports, it's like 96% historical probability that the high or the low of the initial balance would be breached. That leaves us with about 2 to 4%, depending on your product, of a historical probability. Historical probability, not the probability of it happening today. Historical probability of it not breaching that first hour. And what I'm trying to get to here is to say that because the overnight session basically traded the value range from yesterday, you want to treat, the way I look at this is I would treat the range, the overnight range, as an initial balance for today's session. I don't want to confuse you. The initial balance still exists. We still will have the first hour trading. We're still going to use that stat as a target or as a setup. Always do. Same with the overnight stat and various other stats. The overnight point of control stat, the opening and range, touch value high, touch value low, touch point of control. Those are all stats that we work off of on a quantitative basis because we're discretionary auction market and quantitative traders. Really, that's basically what I've been doing for the last 15 years or so, out of 23, and more like 17 years out of 23. And so what I'm saying is the overnight session tested the high and the low of the value range, and what we want to do is look at how does it treat that value range as the initial balance, and how does it treat it. My anticipation is it's very likely to battle here for a little bit, try to be responsive. There's likely to be an attempt at a gap to settle trade early, but we're opening in range, so the gap to settle trade has a pretty high probability. But overall, it's likely to spill to the downside. It's just, and the reason being, it tested the value high and low of yesterday's, acceptance area, and it's ending up at the low end of the range as we open. And so I'm expecting this auction to the downside is incomplete. So let's look at that in a little bit more detail, and I'm building for you the context of my view on what's likely to happen here. So if we look at this in detail, you'll see that yesterday we went to 15 and then we held 17 right here. And then the overnight session came and held this 17, basically 17 handle, 17 handle. This is a weak low. The market opened, started generating a VWAP. There it is. The first hour is done. Now what it has done is it has used the VWAP as and the mid actually as a ceiling for the overnight auction. So the expectation is that, you know, if there's any power to this, especially at the European Open, which occurred right here, if there's any power to this, you would see a higher low and then a push away and above this 4140 area. So as I posted in the Convergent Trading chat room, my price map has not changed, and it continues to be a series that involves 4163 as the key magnet. Colors are still not showing up correctly here. As a key magnet, 4140, this is key from yesterday and the day before. 4140 is this low volume node. You can see it held really nicely here. 4140, so if we give up 4140, the expectation is a test of 30 right here, and it did that yesterday. So 4140, okay. And then if it gives up the 3033 in this area right here, which is basically where we ended up seeing this resistance, then it's 1516, which brings us back to the low, and then from there it's 4100 down here somewhere, and then below that's 4088. 4088 is the key target below here. And it's looking to me like it is very likely to make an attempt, see if there's any interest from buyers at this point, and then start advertising lower prices to bring those buyers in over time. So that's my bias today. So let's draw these scenarios a little bit. So the open, let's go back to doing these in color like we traditionally did. Green being the first scenario. The primary scenario this morning, as we open down here, is an open auction that attempts to push higher, right? And then it's likely to breach the overnight low at 17, expecting it to breach the overnight low, consolidate here for a little bit, and then start to give it up. And then as soon as we give up yesterday's low at 15 and a quarter, then we're likely to make a run for the 4100. 4100 consolidation, and then 88. So double O, the century figure, and 88. Come on, bro. 88 being the key target. You see where the 88 is? It's at the bottom of this really thin profile area right here. This is your primary scenario. This is my primary scenario, I should say. And then the secondary scenario, this beautiful magenta or whatever it is. Secondary scenario, same path. Test the overnight low. Poke around, you know, stick your hand in the water, see if there's any fish there. If you don't find fish there, then boom, we get a squeeze on the shorts as they're not able to entice more selling. We get an impulse higher, back through the open, consolidate. We get the gap to settle trade, the G2S setup here, classic. Gap to settle at 4130. Once we clear the 4130, the price map says 4140 again, and then from there we are likely to move back to the mid-century at 50. Unfortunately, these numbers come out even, unplanned, but they do come out even in their, key strike prices. But 30, 40, 50 is the path for the secondary. I'm not expecting it to take out the high. I don't see any impetus for this thing to go higher. We'll see how these ISM numbers come out, but this is the primary play. Okay, so the main purpose of this is not to give you like, here's what I'm going to do, but to help you see how all the pieces come together so that you can eventually do your own and hopefully disagree with me. A lot of people in Convergent, even the mavens who chat in the read-only channel on Convergent, will often disagree with me, and that's really the point we want to get everybody to. Get you to the point where you believe that you're seeing something that I'm not, and your analysis is indicating that maybe scenario 2 is the better play and it should be scenario 1, or yours looks entirely different. But the goal is not to get on here and give you a sheet with some levels on it. That's not going to be very helpful. The idea for you to be able to trade is to understand why you believe these certain things, and then to provide the logic behind what's expected. Looking at the NASDAQ, by the way, the NASDAQ's a lot stronger. You can see the NASDAQ still holding on to one-time framing. Since this gap up, it's holding on to one-time framing up, one-time framing up, one-time framing up, and yesterday, one-time framing up. The NASDAQ's relatively stronger. It is still flagging at the high. It's still flagging at the high on what is an impulsive move. Again, the NASDAQ looks like it wants to break higher. We'll see. Not necessarily today, since the NQ didn't do very much damage to the sellers overnight. It held below here. So I am expecting it to continue to push down. The NASDAQ has a shelf here at 3,100 or so. This is the next key target for the NASDAQ, about 13. I didn't say 3,100. Sorry, I meant to say 13,125 for the NASDAQ is the next key test area that I'm expecting. Good luck. Time is running out, and the market's about to open. The crude is in a coil. Crude is digesting the OPEC information. It has this massive weak structure beneath it. Crude is eventually likely to fill this in. I don't know what the future holds, but this is very likely to get filled. But crude is also not letting go of these highs. So everybody's in a holding pattern, holding their breath, and then we'll see one side or the other. I could trade either side of crude. Continue higher, expecting a big squeeze. Look at the volume it has generated since that gap. Pretty good volume. More volume than anywhere else in the last 2 weeks or so. That's very significant. But if it breaks lower, it would make for a better trade and much, much cleaner targets. Good luck, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It's free, and you get notified when videos are posted. Take care.